And indefinitely is a word that almost would apply to you, Edgar.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience of going and staying.
Well, I was 12 days from coming home.
And you had already spent how much time there?
And actually, well, when I was in the military, right? I was stationed in Germany, so I had time to come over and visit my folks. And I was 12 days from coming home. And
I see. I see. That's the way it worked. I see.
Yeah,
okay.
I was 12 days from coming home and ETSing, and all of a sudden, what happened was they called on my division to take up arms and go to Iraq. And what ended up happening was a stop loss occurred. The stop loss happens to be an action where anybody who is either moving to a different duty station or leaving the military will be involuntarily extended at their current location. And what ended up happening with me, since I was about 12 days from going home, I got involuntarily extended a year and a half. What happened was 3 months prior to deployment, I had to get trained up to go to Iraq. We deployed for a year, for 12 months. We came back and we couldn't go home or we couldn't do anything because they had to reintegrate us back into the mentality of going back into the civilian world for 3 months. So that's what ended up happening.
I've heard people who've had experiences like this, they talk about it as though it's some sort of unofficial draft.
Yes. If you remember back in the presidential elections, John Kerry would say the backdoor draft. In fact, that's what happened. A lot of soldiers get hit with this backdoor draft, which, you know, since there's no draft today, what they do is recycle the soldiers that are about to leave the military and they get them back into the system, so they continue, they have them in the system still, or in the machine, let's say, so they can't go anywhere and until either they're able to go home after they serve another tour, or if they were about to go to another duty station, they go there and then probably they'll end up going back to Iraq from that duty station.
And there's other service members who have in the inactive ready reserve, which is have become civilians, have got away from the military, but then started a civilian life and then received a letter in the mail that says you have to deploy with this unit that's going to Iraq on this day, and you pretty much have to drop your civilian life and come back into the military. And we took at least probably maybe about 4 people from the inactive ready reserve, and they weren't very happy campers.
I was going to say, that's got to make life in your squad or your platoon, whatever it may be, pretty difficult trying to cope with the problems that these people are having.
I had a similar situation actually, like Edgar. I was a little bit over 90 days of getting out, and that's the regulation. My date of separation was coming up in October, and I was still in Iraq like end of June. And regulation states you have to be out 90 days prior so you can get your stuff in order, take leave, all that. And I didn't know until like a week before I actually left that I was leaving and that I wasn't stop loss because I was under the command of medical command. So it's just a fault of organization, I would think.
You grew up here in Los Angeles?
I was born in Mexico, but I grew up here, yes.
Where'd you go to high school?
Belmont.
Ah, see? Now when you're going to Belmont, they're up on the hill. How do you end up being in Tikrit? What's the mental process? And tell us quickly, because we need to go to a break.
Okay, sure. I wanted to get away from home, 1, and 2, we didn't have enough money for college.
And that's your way to get the GI Bill?
It helps, but it doesn't cover everything, unfortunately, especially with tuition rates at USC.
And if I remember when I took the oath, you take 1 step forward, I think, when you take the oath?
3 steps backward. No, I'm just kidding.
Some people would think that, but whatever it is, when you raised your hand and took the oath and took 1 step forward, maybe, you realized that there was a possibility you could end up in a combat zone?
I joined after September 11, yes.
So you knew what you were facing?
Yeah, I knew. But I mean, it's, like I said, you join knowing the consequences. And anybody who doesn't and says, I'm a conscious objector, I think, you have to have something inherent within you that you know what's going to go on, what you're signing up for.
Okay. We need to take a break. So with your permission, we will do that. We'll be right back in about 2 minutes. Yeah. For more information about Iraq Veterans Against the War, you can contact the national headquarters. That's area code 215-241-7123. There's also a very informative website, which you can find by pointing your browser at www.ivaw.org. The other way, if you don't have time to write all this down right now, is simply go to our site, myfoxla.com. You'll find a link there. And we'll be linking up with you again right after these messages. We'll see you in about 2 minutes. This is Midday Sunday. We are talking about a relatively new organization, Iraq Veterans Against the War. Our guests today, all Army veterans, all with experience in Iraq. Tell us about the organization itself, Iraq Veterans Against the War. How does this begin?
The Iraq Veterans Against the War actually started with several Iraq veterans who met at the Democratic Convention in 2004. And a lot of them were opposed to the war that was going on in Iraq. Some of them were freshly returned vets from Iraq, and they wanted to put together an organization that could reach the American public and tell them what the truth is about the occupation and what's going on in Iraq.
And in terms of size, how large has the organization become at this point?
The organization has actually grown a lot over the last few months, and we've reached about 600 members across the nation in, I believe, all 50 states.
Which doesn't sound to some ears like a lot, but actually it's a movement.
That is a very big movement, because you're asking people to, one, go against a tradition or a stereotype that they're supposed to, blindly support what, some politicians say they must. But then also you're asking people to enter a life of activism and speak on a regular basis, and, and partake in actions that aren't going to get them paid. They're not going to get money for this, but they're out there, speaking and putting their voice out there, because the message is so important and it means so much to us, because it's the soldiers who are sacrificing the most.
Of course.
Because the American government and the and the people just simply watch from a safe distance.
I wonder, Edgar, do you worry about reprisals of some sort for people who are very hawkish and might think that you folks are off in some other crazy world?
Not too much, really.
Yeah.
I do this, because I want to give out the message, that what we're doing over there is wrong. It's an occupation, not a liberation. And I like when people start, bad-mouthing me for doing what I do. It goes in one ear, it comes out the other, it rolls off my back. I really don't take that negative energy in. I just concentrate on what I'm doing, trying to send out that message, especially more now because my brother's in the military. He's in the Army.
And is there concern about where he's going to be assigned?
I know where he's headed, and I know he's headed to Iraq, and I know the date too. So, so it's coming soon.
How's your stomach? How's your heart feel knowing that?
It's in pain. Like my stomach's in knots. I feel things that I felt before. Pains. Memories. I just hope my brother doesn't get to see that stuff. But you never know.
Yeah.